There you are, gorgeous.
I'm here.
Yay, looking marvelous. And I'm so
Thank you.
excited because as you and I talked offline a couple days ago,
Yeah.
we both have, similarities in a lot of things, including coaching in business. So I just love our synergy already. But you talked about being 4 years in recovery, and I'm curious if you could touch upon the role of educating in preventing addiction.
Um, I think I wanted to bring it back around to that. And when I was
Yeah.
thinking about this and Adrian asking me to talk on that, I thought, how did I end up here? And I think the education piece is understanding that there's so much more to it. And it's what you come from. Because where I was raised, there was really nobody that had huge addiction problems. I grew up in small in Saskatchewan. I was raised on a farm. I'm from Canada, and nobody in my family, my immediate family, had any addiction problem. I had an uncle who that was the quiet family secret. He struggled, but we didn't really know about it. And so when I grew up and people were not really around me, so when I started drinking, I was that binge drinker and I
Yeah.
could I could control it and I never really thought of it. So for me, education and addiction really didn't hit until I really realized I was the one with a problem. I was the one that even though people would say, "Oh, you don't have a problem. What do you mean you have a problem?" And when I talked about stopping drinking, and for me it was the wine because as we get older and we hang out with our girlfriends and we have the wine and conversation, and I was the proverbial functioning alcoholic.
Yeah.
I could turn it off, I could turn it on, I could still cope with massive hangovers. Like I and bringing it back to education, and so I know we can talk so much, can't we, Carrie? Would And then I'm looking at the time, I'm like, okay, bring it back to the point.
Well, no, no, no,
So
but I do want to highlight that though. So, I mean, because I think this ties into education. How was it that you were able to recognize that you had a problem?
um it hit home for me. Um I had three daughters. Let's bring this back to, in the 2000s. So when the addiction hit me was when I was going through my divorce.
Yeah.
So uh, here I was, this mom of three young girls. I had my three daughters within 4 years, loved being a mom. I worked as a social worker. I had my kids, and then we're going through this divorce, and I I didn't know how to cope. So I was mom for 1 week, and the proverbial perfect mom, take the kids to school. Oh, by this time I think I had started my part-time business. That's right. I was teaching nutrition and had my nutrition clients, and by this time, because I had left social work to be a stay-at-home mom and then created my business around that. And so, the girls would go to their dads for a week. So I'd be this great mom for a week. And then when my girls went to their dads, I I didn't know how to cope.
Yeah.
So I would work all day, and then I didn't know what to do with myself. And even though I was really healthy, and this is why I love talking about health, Carrie, because I still went to the gym. I still ate healthy. Here I am, a holistic nutritionist. I did all of these things. And on the surface, I mean, people would hire me to come into their companies and teach them how to eat healthy. And then I would go home and drink a bottle or two of wine when the girls weren't with me because I didn't know how to cope. I
Absolutely.
I I didn't know what to do with myself. So when it got so bad, well, I continued in this cycle, and my friends and family didn't really realize how bad it was because I was so healthy.
Yeah.
And the reason I want to make that point is I had convinced myself that because I ate healthy, because I worked out, because I mean, I walked 10, 20,000 steps a day. I did all the things. So for me, well, I'm healthy. So my reward is I get to drink that bottle or two of wine a night. I'm
Yep.
not harming anyone. And when the
Yep.
girls are with me, Carrie, I didn't drink and drive. I barely drank because you're busy with your kids all night. You're helping with homework. I wanted to be a good role model for my daughter. So it was almost like I was two distinct people.
People.
And
Yep.
I would put the drinking me in the box when I look after the girls. And when the girls would go to their dads, and he's a fabulous father. So I had no worries other than I just missed my daughters.
Yeah.
So I blocked it all out by just obliterating myself by just drinking until I went to bed.
So what was it? What was the moment in which you started to recognize you had a problem?
I went through a lot of, okay, I'm hungover, I got to stop drinking. So I stopped drinking for 5 days. Then I'd say, oh, you're healthy, you're good, so this continual
Yep. The
behavior.
cycle. Yep.
And then let's fast forward to the year of the pandemic. My oldest daughter so this is beginning of 2020. My oldest daughter was pregnant with my grandson.
Mhm.
And I was in Mexico and coming back from Mexico, and my daughter's texting me, and she is like, "You're going to be here, mom, when the baby is born." And I'm, of course, so, land in Calgary, drive to where she was at. So this was the end of February of 2020, just before we shut down.
Yep.
So here I am with my daughter, and she has my grandson, of course, beautiful, beautiful baby boy. And I'm looking at him, and it was at one moment in time, and I think we all have that defining moment, all the defining moment. And my daughter and her boyfriend at the time had said, "Can we go out for an hour? Can you look after the baby?" And of course, like what, you know, baby, of course, I'm just going to hold him all night. And I remember because while I was staying with her, Carrie, I drank a lot of wine there too.
Yeah.
Again, you know, retreat to my room, leave them alone, take my bottle of wine, and still have you talked about guilt and shame. I had a lot of that guilt and shame in my mind. And my daughter would always say to me, like, "Mom, your drinking's fine. Like you're not mean. You're not, you just get a little bit funny. And when you've had enough, you go to bed. Like you're not bothering anybody." And I know she was trying to make me feel better.
Yeah.
I know that. However, bring it back to that one night, and I'm holding Carson and I am looking at him and getting real with myself. And in that moment, I remember looking at this little baby and going, "Do you want to be a drunk grandma, or do you want to be the grandma that's hanging out with him?" And in that moment, Carrie, that was March of 2020, and it took me to July 1.
Yep.
June 30th, 2020 was the last drink I ever had. And it was after, not drinking for a while and then going out in the evening and thinking, "Oh, I'm good. I can have one glass." And we all know how one glass goes. Mine went to two bottles, and I woke up the next morning and I just said, "I'm done. Like I am done."
But you know
And
what? I'm gonna tag in because I think this is important because I teach my clients this too. We need sometimes we need those reminders, right? We think that healing is this straight shot doom, and it's not. Sometimes it's doing all of this work, acquiring this information, which is educating yourself about what it feels like not to be leaning into that behavior, whether it's alcohol or working too much or whatever. And then having a moment where we default back to that old pattern of behavior as a reminder, right? As that, oh yeah, okay, we need contrast, we need that remembrance to then move forward on the path that we've made a commitment to. And so I think that ties in beautifully to education. So I guess, I have some notes. How can early education in schools and communities effectively reduce the risk of addiction? But I would ask you, what would you like to see implemented to support our youth and, adults in addiction prevention.
For me, what I see now, look, being on the other side of it and really realizing how we as a society have made alcohol just okay. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Everybody drinks, and I'm not trying to point fingers at anyone, but I still get that from the people that I used to like, that are still my wonderful friends and family, and some of them try to be so supportive. They just can't understand why I won't have a drink.
Yeah.
Even if I go to a party, I mean, I might have a fake beer or something. Like for me now, I just know that I won't drink. My life is so wonderful that I won't go there. So I, it we have been raised, at least in North America, just to believe that alcohol is okay. There's nothing wrong with
Absolutely.
it, and you can have a social drink. And for me, that's where I want education to come in, and the health effects. Like, it is a poison. It's a
Thank you.
poison.
It's killing your brain cells.
And I
Absolutely.
think if we became more aware of that, and not making it just so accepted that it's the only drug that is killing so many people that is legal, that we're not supposed to make a big deal about it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but I totally agree with that. And like even today, I was driving to Worcester, Mass from Connecticut. And his cannabis companies open at 7, 8 a.m. in the morning, right? Now, I've studied the endocannabinoid system. I understand cannabinoids and terpenes. I understand how it binds to our own body, but I also understand that if you're making this accessible and not giving people the education around how it impacts your mind, body, spirit, as you said, then it's natural to lean into that behavior excessively because that's what's normalized. I totally agree with that. Um, it's so funny. It says, how can educators, parents, and community leaders collaborate to create a unified approach to prevention?
I don't think we need to make it the elephant in the room. I don't think we need to make it, as we know that if we tell our kids, oh, that's bad, don't do it.
They're
I
gonna do
mean,
it.
Carrie, listening to your story, if you would have told me not to do anything when I was a kid, I was going to do it. So we do have to understand how everyone functions, and but to work together with our teachers, with our parents, with our kids, it's really just understanding it from every aspect, from what really is alcohol, what's it doing to your body, why. I mean, the education piece, I know I can see my daughters rolling their eyes at me like, oh. However, we need to make it so that it can be fun for kids, not fun to drink, but fun to understand how it's affecting us, and all of us coming together, like you said, about not judging anybody,
Yeah.
not making anything wrong, just getting real about talking about both sides of it. And the point that I want to make when somebody says to me, oh, well, just just have a glass of wine, just to have like, what people that don't have an issue, I have three older sisters, and my oldest sister, I'm here at her farm right now, and she can have a glass of wine or not. She cannot touch it. She could have a sip. It won't change her chemistry or anything. She doesn't crave drinking. For me, if I have a glass, I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah.
And that is something within our own physiology, that those of us that have that addictive personality, and you talked about addictive to work, like I have that addictive personality. Anything I can overwork, I can, when I used to smoke and drink and all of those things, like you will overdo it. So I think understanding and educating kids or educating the people around you to not always come at it from, and that's why I asked the question about perception of the
Yeah.
panelists this morning. So you cannot always come at it from your perception because people can't understand that it is a problem for me if I have one drink. I am not going to be able to get over it where the next person can.
Well, it's so funny you say that. It's such a beautiful question because you're you're right. We have to my hope for society is to start to really come from a place of curiosity rather than creating a story about why somebody does anything, something. And it can be outside of addiction, right? I work extensively in mental health and, depression. Oh, this person's always depressed, blah, and they make up a story instead of getting curious and being able to hold space. I have tapped in to the school district and in the community to engage my children's school system because addiction and trauma are pervasive in the community in which I live. And it's being able to, what you said, have those conversations without making it punitive. I think so often, particularly around children, we punish them. We create these systems of bad, like making you bad. You did something wrong. Instead of informing them with me, I educate my children. I tell them extensively what cannabis does to the prefrontal cortex of your brain if you smoke it before you're a certain age. I tell them what the effects of alcohol are. And I also tell them if they choose to smoke cannabis before they're of age to purchase it, get it from their cousin who can get it from a dispensary because of fentanyl. I've given them the information, the facts. I don't want them to consume, but I want them to have as much information outside of being made to feel like they're bad if they do it so they can make an informed choice. And I think so often we keep everything under wraps. We're so secretive, or it's to your point, it's the elephant in the room, and then kids don't know what to do. And the other thing, coping skills. We
Yeah.
lack coping skills. We are not teaching students or people in the workplace how to self regulate. We're expected to take this human body that's meant for movement, right? Not even to sit in a summit for 6 hours, literally, to sit and work and create and produce for 8 hours or school. And if we're not teaching them how to get up and regulate, how to walk away from one problem and completely absorb into something else so that they can reset, then of course they're going to lean into addiction because they're thinking something is wrong with them. And that's not the case. They just need tools to be able to take care of themselves in this moment.
And that's it. When you're talking about that, and I'm thinking about my daughters, and for me, it was always about what and who do I need to be for my daughters? And if
Mm.
I am not that, and it's hard, Carrie, it is hard. However, I just kept saying to myself, like, okay, what do my daughters need from me? And you talk about curiosity. I'm I I come from a place of compassion. How can I
Mm.
be compassionate in the moment? And I'm not saying that like my daughters can tell you they didn't get away with much. Like there was a lot of boundaries within our household. However, it wasn't punitive. It
Yes.
was these are your choices. Understand that choices have consequences, that type of thing. And
Yeah.
the education and helping them self-regulate and we're internal, uh, having the internal coping mechanisms versus looking for whether it's the alcohol, whether it's the weed, whether it's, validation from a boyfriend or other kids, understanding that we are the ones that have to do that. And yeah, it is hard.
Well, yeah,
However,
it is.
practice.
Particularly as a parent, right? Because our children are reflections of us, our internal state. And so I would double down on not only do I encourage showing up from compassion, for others, but for ourselves,
Yeah.
because we are going through this experience and there's no rule book for what it is we're going through. So with 3 minutes left to go, Sam, what would you like to leave our audience with? Something that they can start to either implement in this present moment to really start to educate themselves, or anything that you have found for yourself that works to really break free from leaning into addiction to alcohol and living the life of joy and peace that you now experience.
I think a lot of the speakers, and I only got to listen to a couple of them because we're in different rooms. However, where we seem to be on the same wavelength, that it it seems simple. However, when you are in addiction, you have to start out simple and having that compassion for yourself every day. And I had 1,000 day ones. So
Yes.
for me, the difference was once I decided, once I looked at my grandbaby and just said, I need to figure this out. And you talked about you have to do what's right for you. And for me, at the beginning, all I did carry was, okay, I'm not going to drink wine. What am I going to do? I
Yeah.
had to get up and move. I had to completely do something different. I couldn't think my way out of it because I would drive myself crazy. So I always joked around that for the first 6 months, I traded wine for walking. So
Yeah.
that's how simple it was for me that, oh, I feel like wine. And Carrie, I felt like wine every hour.
Yeah.
So I was literally walking. I'd grab the dog, I'd go around the block, like interrupt whatever it is